All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Mr. Crouch, the state ready?
State calls Trevor Daniels.
Step right up here, sir, and face our clerk and let her place you under oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, Detective. Will you state your first and last name, please?
Trevor Daniels.
And will you spell your first and last name?
Trevor Daniel.
Thank you very much. And Detective Daniel, you are employed by the Dixon County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been employed there?
21 years.
And what was your position in April of 2018?
Sergeant for the Criminal Investigation Division.
Okay, and just for clarification, what does Sergeant of CID, what are your responsibilities?
To assign cases and oversee the work of my detectives.
Okay. And on April the 4th of 2018, what assignment were you given?
Missing Joe Clyde Daniels.
Okay. And did you respond to the Garners Creek area?
Yes, I did.
And how much time would you say that you have personally spent investigating this case?
I can't even fathom how much time, a lot of time.
Did your investigation go well beyond April the 6th of 2018?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you had some personal interactions with the defendant on the morning of April 4th of 2018?
Yes.
And we're going to get to those in just a minute, but I want to backtrack just briefly and talk about some of the searches that were conducted. I believe you were responsible for some of the search assignments and are more familiar than Sheriff Bledsoe with the maps and how those were developed.
Okay. Yes.
And I just want to spend just a moment doing that.
Okay.
Detective Daniel, I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone just a little bit more closely to you. Thank you.
And Detective, I'm showing you what have previously been marked in a smaller version as exhibits. These are larger versions of exhibits we've already moved into evidence.
Yes.
If you would please step off the witness stand for just a moment, and I think we need to turn this around a little bit more. The jury can see. Detective, what are we looking at here?
This is an overall shot of the area of around 1112 Garners Creek. This black dot here labeled IPP, and terminology leaves me, but that's the house, 1112 Garners Creek Road. These color shaded areas here all around are areas that have been searched. All the way, any place you see a colored area is areas that have been searched. When I had these maps made, we still continued to search, so as you look at it, there'd be shaded, highlighted areas that you'll see here along some of these maps that weren't added at the time these were made.
And you had these maps made.
Yes.
And although we see different colors, do the colors signify anything?
No, it's just to show the pattern, just where, because they were assigned, they were searched in the blocks. If you see a colored block, that block was searched at that time, or it was searched by a group of people at that time.
And kind of briefly describe when you say each block was searched by a group of people. Was there a detail of people that went to that coordinate?
Yes. The search and rescue teams that responded out to the scene that day, They were very well coordinated. So they would mark these blocks off, and they would have a member with a GPS unit on them, and then with the civilian help at the time, they would assign them an area, bus them to that area, and search that one area specifically.
So if a civilian team led by a search and rescue member with GPS were to arrive in, let's say, this block, how would they do that? Would they line up single file, or would they spread out?
They would line up and start off at one of the corners or one of the straight edges here, line up arm length apart, and walk it.
Okay. And that's what happened in each one of these grid coordinates.
Yes.
All right. I'll move this map as the next exhibit.
170.
That one goes.
Okay, Detective, what are we looking at here?
This is a map of the area of McElhoney Road, specifically this section here. You can also see this is the Garners Creek Road as well, and this is McElhoney Road, West Tennessee City Road turns into. This is what this area here is. All these red lines that you see on here are GPS tracks. So one person had this on and was walking it and created these pinpoints and made these tracks, all down through here, all over here. And you can see they were being bused. That's where you get the road from. They would get in, and the GPS wouldn't shut off, and that's why you get the road marked in here.
Thank you. I'll move this as exhibit 171.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Detective, the last map.
It goes just like that. Well, this way.
Thank you. Kind of give us our bearings on this one.
All right, this is Garners Creek Road, and this is Harris Road here. This will be the interstate down here. This is Love's truck stop, but this is Garners Creek to Harris. Over here, 48 to Love's.
Go ahead.
This is just some of the areas we'd searched on this road as well.
Now, I want to draw your attention specifically to this yellow box. Is this yellow box at the intersection of two roads?
Yes, this is Garners Creek and Harris Road.
Okay. And just for overall familiarity with the map, we've heard some discussion already and testimony of Love's, and would you point out where Love's is?
That's right here.
And where does Harris Road intersect with Highway 48?
Finish it up right about here.
Okay, so if you were going to get from Love's over to Garners Creek via Harris Road, would you show us how you would do that?
From Love's to Garners?
Yes.
I'd come out and go down 48 and travel Love's, or you travel Harris to Garners Creek.
Okay. And we also see some red lines going through here. What are these?
Same as the other GPS tracks that people had gone down through and searched.
Okay. And do you know from personal experience, is this road near the county line between Hickman and Dixon County?
I believe you see right here, Hickman, Dixon, this line right here is the county line.
In fact, is it labeled Dixon and Hickman?
Yes,
And does the road go from paved to dirt at some point right here?
right here at this intersection. Stop. It stops right here and it turns to dirt or church.
And if you were to follow the dirt road south all the way, where does it come out?
Right here on Highway 48 in Hickman County.
Okay. I'll move this as the next exhibit.
Well, that's the interstate.
Yeah. It may be cut off in this map view.
It might be, yeah, but it comes out on Highway 48 in Hickman County.
The dirt road is going south.
Yes, it goes underneath the interstate, comes on down and intersects Highway 48.
And this is Highway 48,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhere these two roads intersect.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
It's approximately 2 miles from this intersection to Highway 48.
Got it. Move this as the next exhibit.
172.
Detective, going back to the morning of April 4th of 2018, what was your initial contact with the defendant?
When I arrived on scene, it was probably around 8:20 to 8:25. And when I got there, Captain B.J. Gafford was there, and he asked me if I could go inside and re-interview the parents.
Re-interview the parents?
I guess our patrol had talked to them
Okay.
initially.
And when you went inside, was the defendant present?
No.
And did you wish to speak with him?
Yes.
And what did you do in order to try to speak with him?
I had his wife call him and tell him to come back to the house.
But he wasn't on the property.
No.
And did he return home?
Yes, he did.
Do you know about what time?
Around 9:20.
9:20 a.m.?
Mhm.
Okay. And what was the initial statement given to you at around 9:20 that morning by the defendant?
He had said he woke up about 5:30 and went to go get the clothes, went to the boys' bedroom to get Alex and Joe Clyde's clothes. He got their clothes, started walking back down the hall, noticed the coffee table was turned 90 degrees from the door, from its original position. He said he looked immediately at the door, at the lock, and noticed it was gone. And then he went and noticed Joe Clyde was gone.
Okay. Did he use specifically the words 90 degrees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he told you that the coffee table was turned at a 90-degree angle to the door.
Yes.
All right. Now, did you have some more contact or interaction with the defendant later on, midday or thereafter?
At approximately 12:30, Detective Lovell called me and advised that Mr. Daniels wanted someone to check his trunk of his car. So I called Mr. Daniels, asked him to meet me at his car, and I walked to his car. And Mr. Daniels walked to his car, and he opened up the trunk with his key fob, and I raised it up and looked inside.
What'd you see?
Nothing, nothing of note.
Okay. Now,
Joe Clyde wasn't in there.
Joe Clyde was not there. Do you know about what time it was when 911 was called that morning?
About 6:22.
Okay. And at about 12:25 is when you got the request to check his trunk?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you think that was odd?
I did.
Why did you think that was odd?
I mean, why wouldn't you check it?
Okay.
I mean, if he wanted to know, I mean, it was just odd.
All right. Thank you. And Detective, you had one more interaction with the defendant later that evening?
Yes.
And about what time was that?
Around 8:30, I guess.
Okay. And did you participate in an interview with the defendant at his home that night?
Yes, I had a lost person questionnaire for special needs that a man from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had given me and asked, to have filled out.
And did you go through that questionnaire with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And also participating in that interview were, I believe, Agents Stephen Kennard with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Yes, Agent Kennard and Agent Graves.
And Agent Graves. And where did that interview occur?
In the house, in their bedroom, in the Daniels' bedroom.
Okay. And again, this wasn't a custodial type interrogation. This was at the defendant's house.
Correct.
And you were filling out a lost persons questionnaire.
For special needs.
For special needs. So we've already heard testimony that there was a lost persons questionnaire filled out that morning by the Dixon County Sheriff's Office. This one is a little bit different.
Yes.
Because it's for special needs.
For special needs children.
And was there a representative from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children on scene?
There was at the command post.
Okay.
And that's where he gave me that form.
There were, and about this interview started at about what time?
8:30, 9 o'clock.
8:30 or 9 o'clock? PM.
PM, yes.
And you were there for the entire length of the interview?
Correct.
And did you notice any inconsistencies in the defendant's story from what he had told you earlier that morning?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Agent Kennard was there because TBI at that time hadn't had any contact personally with the Daniels. So they were getting their story. And as I was listening in to their interview, he had made a couple of changes that I noted that he didn't tell me that morning. One of them was the fact that instead of after he got the clothes and he was walking to their bedroom, that he didn't look at the door, the lock on the door.
He told you that morning that he had
Immediately looked at the lock at the door.
Okay.
And he had told Agent Kennard that he didn't look at the lock at the door because he didn't worry about it. I think it was his words.
All right. Anything else?
He also
neglected to mention that Alex had urinated in the floor.
Joe Clyde?
That Alex had woken him to tell him that Joe Clyde had urinated in the floor.
So earlier in the morning, when you made your initial contact with the defendant, he did not tell you that Joe Clyde had urinated in the floor.
No.
But 8:30 p.m. on April the 4th, he then stated Joe Clyde had urinated in the floor.
Yes.
And that was an inconsistency that you noted.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? You make any statements about kids going outside to play on the afternoon of April 3rd?
That morning, I was advised that they locked the door. They put the padlock on the door at 4 p.m. and nobody went back outside for the rest of the night.
That's what he initially told you?
Yes.
And what did he say at the 8:30 p.m. interview?
That they went outside to play at 6, before or after supper, I couldn't remember. They had went outside to play at 6 p.m.
Okay, so, I mean, in and of itself, these statements weren't earth-shattering by any means, right?
Well, no.
They were just inconsistent.
Exactly. It was just different from what he had previously told me.
Okay, thank you. Now, Detective, do you know about what time that interview concluded on April the 4th of 2018? And I think it was before 11 or so?
Yeah, around 10:30ish
All right.
p.m.
On April the 4th.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I want to move in time to April the 6th of 2018.
Okay.
Were you present or outside of the interview in which the defendant made his confession?
Yes.
And at the conclusion of that confession, what did you do?
I was asked if we could give Mr. Daniels a ride. He had agreed to show us the location of where Joe Clyde was.
Okay. And did you do so?
Yes, I did.
Did you place the defendant in handcuffs?
Oh, no, sir.
How was he transported or given a ride?
Detective Chris Stockman, him and his vehicle were there at the police department. He got in the driver's side, and I got in behind Detective Stockman, and Mr. Daniels, he got in behind on the passenger side next to me. But nobody put him in the car. He got in himself.
Okay, and he wasn't handcuffed or
No.
shackled or anything like that?
No.
Did you start asking him questions when you got in the car?
No.
Did he make some, I guess, spontaneous remarks to you and Detective Stockman?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And did you have a recorder running at the time?
Yes, I did.
Now, how long did your recording run for?
Approximately 5 hours.
Okay. So, Your Honor, we have a 5-hour interview that we are not going to play. In fact, Detective, it's not an interview.
No.
It's the defendant making spontaneous statements.
Correct.
And have you, in your investigation, clipped some of those statements from this recording?
Yes, I have.
And at this time, we're going to play approximately 12 or so clips from the recording. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Mr. Etheridge, if you'd pull that up. Now, we've got the first one labeled as track 1, which starts at 000 minutes and runs for approximately 6 minutes and 32 seconds.
Mhm.
Right.
Will you hook my phone up?
Turn the volume up.
Hey, do you have a phone charger in here?
I sure do.
Will you hook my phone up? Just let it charge? What the hell is that?
Folks, I don't know if you can hear very well. Could you hear that, what was actually being said? All right, I said they could. Is that as loud as it'll go? Back from another courtroom and plug into, I'm told.
Yesterday it was too loud, and today it was.
Pretty faint. I'd like to make sure it's audible.
Yeah, we're late.
Let's go ahead and see if we can round one up. Wireless one.
Thought Jennifer was still using it.
You want to use this speaker?
To the scene, so. Yeah.
Anybody here ever had problems getting your TV to work at home using the remote? It was a very familiar feeling when I saw Mr. Etheridge pointing that thing at the television and not getting a response.
Charge. What the hell is it? Yeah.
That's all the way up. Why don't y'all step back across the hallway until we get this resolved?
And Judge Wolf, just for the record, this is not a Mr. Etheridge issue here.
This is not what?
This is we've practiced these. I mean, I'm not sure why we can't hear it, because we can previously always been able to play it loudly. It
I
was,
have this effect on electronic devices. Everything I touch, and I didn't know if it was because I walked past it a couple of times, that maybe is why I did it, but I understand you run a test run through this and it was working correctly, so let's just see if we can get it fixed. I just didn't want the jury to just sit here while we were trying to work on it, so. You got it? Thank you, Ms. Fry. Thank you, Officer Howell. Thank you, whoever. All right. So we're now ready to bring the jury back. All right. Bring the jury in. Where'd he go? If there was active video of the confession that they were supposed to do once it was completed. I'm sorry. What? Some of the jurors had asked to have an opportunity to use the restroom before they came back in. All this news video we have out there, we should pass them.
Criticism well.
I think the county needs to hire besides as a deputy, also the IT person for the courthouse.
And paying for that too.
When Ms. Fry's
think we have it fixed. Keeping me away from all of the electronics, I think they have it fixed, so we're going to go ahead and try this again.
Okay, Mr. Etheridge, if you would begin with track 1, please.
See, I'm back glass now.
Hey, do you have a phone charger in here?
I sure do.
Will you hook my phone up? Just let it charge? What the hell is that? Hello? Yeah, we're leaving right now, carrying it back out to the scene, so. Yeah. So, yeah, he's gonna go out there and lead us to it. All right. Bye. And we'll take it off the ringer. The ringer back on.
Plug it up now.
Because that thing's about at 0.
It's charging now.
Thank you.
Is this too much heat? Is it too warm? Or are you comfortable, Joe? Or
Yeah.
no, I understand. I didn't know if it was too hot or too cold. Fix the central car 16.
All right, freaking Joanne.
Be escort 1 male from PD back out to Tennessee City scene 41389.
I don't want to see him. Just get as close, okay? Got it, man.
We ain't gonna do that to you, Joe, okay?
I don't want this to happen. That's what killed me. No, we won't allow that to happen. It's gonna kill me. It's gonna kill me.
We ain't gonna let nobody hurt you, Joe, okay?
Yeah. It's gonna kill me. No, he won't. Take some deep breaths, Joe. Okay? I'm not gonna let nobody get to you. Do what, buddy?
What donations for funeral?
Okay.
You just want him to be happy.
Oh, yeah.
Just want him to be happy. Go like this.
Do what?
Just want him to be happy.
Who?
Joe.
He is. He's in heaven. He ain't got a care in this world. He's sitting at the right hand of the Creator. Basking in the glory of His awesomeness.
He's happy.
Detective, just briefly in track one, do you remember some of the things from after listening that the defendant stated?
Yes. He was saying that he didn't want this to happen, that he wanted all the donations to go to his funeral.
Did he say he wanted Joe Clyde to be happy?
Yes, he wanted Joe Clyde to be happy.
Did he say, I don't want to see him?
Was that in this clip?
I'm asking, I thought I heard that, but I'm asking you.
He may have. I wasn't paying. I didn't hear it.
Okay, that's fine. And track two, which begins at 48 minutes and 40 seconds.
Just want to tell my wife I'm sorry.
Okay, and what did the defendant say?
I just want to tell my wife I'm sorry.
All right. And track three, which begins at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 20 seconds.
What you scared of? What are you scared of?
You're out much longer.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Not going to be around much longer.
Why do you believe that?
I'm just scared. I never meant to do this. I know when they took me yesterday to the advocacy center.
Yeah.
And they brought back in Alex. I was wondering, at that point, I was like, what's he going to tell him, What's he going to tell him?
Mm-hmm. Wow, what did he know?
I guess he saw everything.
Really? He saw it all?
I guess he saw everything.
Did he tell you that?
No.
Well, why do you think he saw it all?
They were, when I was in there being interrogated and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had that feeling that he talked to them.
Yeah,
Told them.
I already knew.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you if he did or didn't.
Right? You don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what they want to do, what they want to say. Well, you know what's
What who's going to do? What who's going to say?
Was we coming through the Bluetooth?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry I got interrupted.
That's right.
What are you, who are you worried about?
Hey, Joe, do you remember walking uphill or downhill, or was it just flat or, level, or?
I went up and down some hills. There's also a tree line, I think that's back there.
Okay.
I think they may have, they're like, kind of right under the rest.
No, it's okay. So did you go into the tree line?
No, he told Sheriff no.
Oh, okay, so before the tree line?
I think,
Okay.
yeah.
And they covered him with some grass.
Covered in with some grass. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just hang tight. It's okay.
Why did it do this? Why did this happen?
I wish I could tell you.
Joe, do you remember walking through any short grass, like maybe a field that had been cut or bush hogged or anything?
Yeah, there was some areas that were not like grown grass, like it was kind of like someone shaped it.
Okay, but it was just like in sections, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
What'd you say?
I'll have my day. One day.
We all do. We all do.
Alex is a good boy.
Who?
Alex,
Yeah.
he's a good boy. He doesn't lie. He tells the truth.
That's always admirable.
We taught him not to, not to lie to anybody. Tell the truth, and
That's good. He's 8, right?
yeah,
When's he turn 9?
November.
November?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess he won't be my stepson no more.
No, he always will be. I got a stepfather that's, my mother died 12 years ago, and he's remarried 2 or 3 times, but he's the man that right.
Detective, at 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 30 seconds, did you hear the defendant say Alex is a good boy?
Yes.
He isn't a liar?
Yes.
He tells the truth?
Yes.
We taught him not to lie to anybody?
Yes.
I guess he won't be my stepson anymore.
Yes.
Track 4.
And I went back again to Skyline, Madison, because I attempted suicide.
How'd you tempt it?
Tried to strangle myself.
Tried to strangle yourself? With what?
Belt.
Did you hang it somewhere, or was it just you just trying to do it manually?
Manually.
Yeah. Did you pass out?
Almost. My wife had to take the belt off my. She almost took it off. Yeah.
Track 5.
Yeah, there's a tree line that's on the right that I saw that I can remember. And there was a field on the left.
Okay. When you were facing or doing what?
Those parts. I don't know if it was not on this road. There's a road up there. That road that's going. There's a tree line on the right, and then there's a field on the left when I was looking. And I was walking through some grass. And put them in the field. And I buried them, and I put some grass over them.
Okay, Detective, at the end of track 5, 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 50 seconds, what did the defendant say he did?
He said he put him in the field, I buried him, and I put some grass over him.
All right. Track 7. I'm sorry, track 6.
Well, field though, put some grass over them too, so, and I don't remember
prints like this?
like that stuff. Yeah. So
Okay. I really can't understand that. What are y'all discussing there?
And I couldn't hear it about where he put him.
Okay. What was the background noise? Do you remember?
That was the UTV that the sheriff put him on.
Track 7.
It's very, very vague, but he has grass covered over next to either a tree or
What's he say there?
His grass covering over him. I think he said he's next to a tree.
Okay. Track 8.
but he is in that field. I know it's a big field, but he's in that field.
And what does he say there?
He's in that field. I know it's a big field, but he's in that field.
Okay. And track 9.
I really want to thank you guys for everything.
What does the defendant tell you then?
I really want to thank you guys for everything.
I really want to thank you guys for everything. All right. Track 10.
I've had a bunch of jobs. No, it's checked out. Yeah. One of them sort of did, but, you know, basically. What? One did sort of pan, but one job did pan out, but it was getting to, just the way the company was heading and the way the client was heading, it was just time to leave. I believe. So I quit one place because I kept on having problems with vertigo, and so I quit that place. And worked on limited for a while, and did some helping, help the Dixon Police Department fix their systems and stuff like that. So I know a little bit about songs and.
Detective, did the defendant say I helped the Dixon Police Department fix their systems?
Yes.
What do you know what that means?
He was referring to their computer systems. The WinSoms is the records management system that we use and that the Dixon Police Department use.
So the Dixon Police Department, Dixon County Sheriff's Office uses a case management system called WinSoms. And through your investigation, did you learn that the defendant works in the field of information systems and computer technology?
Yes.
Did you know that he had worked for a company that contracted with the Dixon Police Department?
At that time, no. That was the first I was hearing of it at that time.
But since then, you've learned
Yes.
that he did, and that's what the defendant was referring to?
Yes.
Okay. Track 11.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be confronted by my wife. That's going to be hard. My dad, my mom, my stepmom. My Aunt Joyce. Hello.
What does the defendant say?
He said, I'm pretty sure going to have to confront, like he says, people, or my mom. Then he lists everybody, my mom, my stepmom, my dad, Aunt Joyce, Alex, Noah.
Okay. And track 12.
I'm going to confront a lot of people.
What's he say there?
I'm going to have to confront a lot of people.
Okay. And then the final track 13, which is at 3 hours, 49 minutes, and 25 seconds.
I know they interviewed Alex and make sure he told them everything.
What's he say there?
I know they interviewed Alex, and I'm pretty sure he told them everything.
He references Alex and Alex seeing and telling all a couple of times in these tracks.
Yes, sir.
And I want to go back just briefly to track 1. Do you remember what the defendant said about his father?
My dad's going to kill me.
How many times did he say that?
Twice, I believe. I'm pretty sure twice.
Did he appear to you to be genuine in the fear that his father was going to be angry?
Yes.
Now, let me go back to these series of clips occurred after the interview at the police department and throughout the night as he's helping locate the body. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you recorded approximately 5 hours, which we have not played, but from that recording we've taken 13 audio clips. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And we've now listened to those audio clips?
Yes, sir.
And I will move those audio clips into the next exhibit.
173.
Yes, sir.
Were you at the Daniel residence, the residence of the defendant, on April the 5th of 2018?
Yes, I was on the scene.
Yeah. You were there pretty much every day.
Yes, sir.
And I'm specifically asking about the arrival of additional family members. Do you know when the defendant's mother, Ms. Collins, arrived on scene?
It was approximately 2:30, 3 o'clock
On what day?
on the 5th.
On the 5th. So she wasn't there on April 4th.
No.
She came into town on April 5th.
Yes.
And do you know what state she arrived from?
I was in the house with Joseph at that time when I seen the car pulling in the driveway, and I asked him, "Who's this pulling in here?" And he said, "That's my mother," and I think he said her brother who drove her down here from Arkansas.
From Arkansas.
Yes.
All right. If I could have 1 second. Last couple of issues, Detective, and I want to keep the dates in order as we can.
Okay.
April 4th, you're initially there. The evening of April 4th at about 8:30 is when you conduct the interview along with Agent Kennard. That interview lasts several hours. April the 5th, you've testified that the defendant's mother arrived on scene. Did you get a phone call sometime on April the 5th of 2018 from the defendant?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
That he had went to the intersection of Harris Road. They told me around 3 o'clock in the morning he'd went to Love's to buy gas and cigarettes, and that he got out of the car at the intersection of Harris and Garner's Creek to look around for Joe Clyde.
Okay, and let's make sure we're all on the same time page. Your interview, you and Agent Kennard interview him on April the 4th, starting at 8:30, thereabouts.
We left that house around 1:20 a.m.
Okay, around 1:20 a.m.
on the 5th.
And the defendant called you and said that at around what time?
He called me on the 5th at right at 8 p.m. and asked me or said he'd went to the Love's at 3 o'clock that morning to get gas and cigarettes, and then he got out of the car at the intersection of Harris and Garner's Creek to look for Joe Clyde.
Okay, so that means that after you and Agent Kennard left the residence at about 3 o'clock in the morning, the defendant left his residence, according to him, and went to Love's.
Yes.
All right, I'll pass the witness.
False examine.
Your Honor, may I see Exhibit 162? I believe it's the transcript of the interrogation of Mr. Daniels. Mr. Daniel, you testified earlier that you were involved in this investigation from the very beginning and That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You were an integral part of the investigation into this disappearance for the Dixon County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir.
You arrived early and you worked many, many hours.
Yes, sir.
You pretty much investigated everything.
Well, I can't say everything, but I was involved a lot.
Okay. And you were there on the date that April the 6th, that Mr. Daniels was interrogated by the TBI.
Yes, sir.
And he was interrogated by Agent Boyd and Agent Faulkner, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you stood outside the door and you listened to that interrogation.
For a period of time, not the whole time.
But you heard a good part of that interrogation, didn't you?
I remember hearing two things.
May I approach her? This is the transcript of the interrogation.
Okay.
Would you please read beginning at line 1 and ending at line 10? Page, what page is that?
107. Who is speaking there?
That is,
Joe Daniels?
yes, sir.
Okay. You may read it out loud?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About 9 o'clock that night, because my goal was to be in bed at 10, I get up at 5:30 and get him on the bus at 6:25, 6 o'clock, something like that. 11:32, I believe, 11:30, 11:32, somewhere between 11:30 and 11:40, I got woke up by Alex. Alex told me that JoJo had peed on the floor. I went in there and I told Alex, don't worry about this, we'll just put him back. Agent Boyd, see, those weren't the words that you used. That's not what you told Alex.
Right. That was the first time that Agent Boyd told Mr. Daniels that he believed Mr. Boyd believed Alex had heard something or saw something. Correct?
I mean, if you say so, I guess. Like I said, I remember hearing two things. Did he let him out of the house?
I haven't asked you about those two things.
Okay.
Did you say you did not hear what you were just reading? You had not heard that?
No, I didn't hear what I just read.
And Judge, I'm going to object simply because Detective Daniel has testified he only heard two things that happened inside that interview. How can he testify to anything he didn't hear?
It would appear to me that he cannot be questioned about a transcript of an audio that he didn't hear anything about it. That's why I was wanting to clarify that I thought I understood correctly. You can ask him about the two things he heard, if you like. Sustain the objection.
How far from 1112 Garners Creek Road is it to the intersection, if you're going south on Garners Creek Road, how far is it to the intersection of Old Garners Creek Road?
7 miles, approximately. Oh, excuse me. You're talking about the intersection of Old Garners Creek and Garners Creek?
Yes.
Maybe a quarter mile from his house to Old Garners Creek.
Approximately a quarter mile, you believe?
I would think.
That Garners Creek Road goes from 70 down to Harris Road over to Highway 48, is that right? And then over to 48 goes down to Interstate 40.
48, yeah.
Yes.
It crosses 40, yes.
And folks who are going to Nashville to and from oftentimes use that as a shortcut to get over to Highway 40, don't they?
Yes.
So that's a fairly heavily trafficked road, isn't it?
Garners Creek?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And Harris Road is also, wouldn't you say?
I would guess. I don't live there on the roads, but I'd say people use it.
And also 48 would be fairly heavily trafficked.
Yes.
And so people use that as a cut through to avoid going through Dixon to get to Nashville.
I would too.
Now, you said earlier that you arrived there at around 8:20 to 8:25.
Yes, sir.
And Detective Gafford directed you to re-interview the family.
It's Captain Gafford.
Captain
He was
Gafford.
patrol captain at the
sorry.
time.
Okay. And Mr. Daniels was not there.
No, sir.
And based on what you understood from your investigation that morning, he was out looking for his son, wasn't he?
That's what I was told at that time.
And it would not be surprising, or it was not surprising to you that this man was out looking for his son, was it?
Not at that time.
I mean, that's what someone would do if their child were missing.
Correct.
In fact, it would be suspicious if someone wasn't out looking for their child, wouldn't it?
Possibly so.
Now, after he arrived home and these interrogations began, now he had already been interrogated though, hadn't he? Or
When?
questioned?
When?
When the people arrived initially. The law enforcement, I'm sorry, when they arrived initially.
They got there because they called them there that their son was missing, so they, was taking a report.
So he had told the story then, initially.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then he told the story to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then he told the story to TBI agent Kennard.
Yes, sir.
And he told the story to many people, many law enforcement officers during that period, didn't he?
I know about those three.
Okay. Anyone else?
He talked to, I guess, Detective Lavone, Detective McCartney.
All right. And they took him on a ride, and they questioned him on that ride, didn't they?
I believe so.
So he told them the story also.
Yes, sir.
And there were some, as you said earlier, minor inconsistencies in his stories.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's not unusual, is it?
Not terribly. Just.
When you're testifying as a witness, sometimes you don't remember things.
Correct.
Right? And you have to have your memory refreshed.
Correct.
So people don't remember everything the first time, do they?
Not always.
Now, was it you who told Mr. Daniels and the rest of his family to stay there at the house and not to search for Joe Daniels?
I don't believe so.
Who told them that?
I do not know.
Someone did, though, didn't they?
I believe it was. I believe somebody did.
All right, so Mr. Daniels had been instructed. Oh, wait a minute. What time did he get home or get back to the house once you were there?
Around 9:20, 9:19 or so.
All right. And his car was there from then until the trunk was examined, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told him, or someone with law enforcement had told him, don't go look for your son, don't go searching, don't try to do any kind of investigation, right?
Yes.
So, when he thinks of this, well, maybe he's in the trunk, or maybe he somehow or another got in the trunk, instead of going out there and looking, he does what he's told to do, and he calls law enforcement and says, hey, I have an idea, right?
I assume so.
Wouldn't be proper for him to go out there and examine the trunk and find some sort of evidence. He wouldn't be the one who needs to collect that, would he?
No, sir.
That would be a job for law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
These inconsistencies. He told, and I don't remember his title, but TBI Agent Kennard, is that what he would be?
That's what I
Agent
call him.
Kennard, I guess. He told Agent Kennard that he did not look at the door, but later in that interview, you reminded him that he looked at the front door or at the door first, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's right. That's right, I did." Isn't that what he said?
Yes. Yeah, so when I confronted him, he said about the difference. He's like, yeah, what I told you this morning's right.
Okay. And when he was interviewed by Agent Kennard, that's when he remembered that Joe Clyde peed in the floor, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
In clip one that we just heard, early in the ride,
That's right after we just got in the car.
okay? And during that early part, in the early part of that clip, you hear Mr. Daniels say, "I don't know what just happened." Didn't he say that?
No. He said, I didn't want this to happen.
We don't have a transcript of that, do we?
No. But that's what he said, I didn't want this to happen.
If it sounded like, "I don't know what just happened," could that be right?
No.
testified earlier that you looked into the trunk, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You did not find any blood in that trunk, did you?
No, sir.
You didn't find any bodily fluids in that trunk, did you?
No, sir.
You didn't find any hair in that trunk,
No,
did
sir.
you?
I was just a cursory look.
You didn't find any teeth in that trunk.
No, sir.
That vehicle was seized, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And it was sent to the TBI to be processed.
Yes, sir.
And based on your investigation, after processing, they didn't find any blood in that trunk, did they?
I can't testify to that. I didn't look at it.
You didn't investigate it?
I didn't examine the trunk like that. I mean, I'm not a lab technician.
I'm not asking you to say that you tested it and came up with some sort of result. I'm asking you as an investigator whether or not you investigated whether or not the TBI results indicated there was any kind of blood or other biological material.
From my recollection, there was none.
Who is Daniel McCormick?
He was a witness, apparently.
And he saw a child on the side of Garners Creek Road in black pajamas with a skeleton on him, right?
I don't know what he saw.
Okay. That's what he said he saw.
Okay.
You don't know that?
I know he said he saw somebody.
Okay. He saw someone 5 feet or shorter standing on the side of the road with a black shirt with a white skeleton torso.
Or a skeleton torso, yes.
Joe Clyde Daniels had on black pajamas with a white skeleton torso that night, didn't he?
That's what we were told.
Did you participate in the execution of the search warrant at the property of the Daniels? There was a search warrant that was obtained for that location. Did you, this after the arrest, I suppose, of Mr. Daniels, did you participate in that search warrant?
Which one?
May I approach, Your Honor?
You know which date?
I'll let you look at it and tell me if you can say whether or not you participated in that. That, I think, was the first search warrant.
No, sir.
You did not participate in the
No,
search
sir.
of the residence?
No, sir.
You arrived early on the 4th, and were you there at the house pretty much the entire day?
Not at the house. I was at the command post most of the day.
Okay. And eventually you went back down with Agent Kennard?
That night, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's start at 8 o'clock or 8, whatever in the morning that you got there. How long did you stay from 8 until you left the Daniels residence? How long were you?
Daniels, I left and went around and helped do some more searching. So I probably left his house, I would say, around 10 a.m., a little after 10.
Okay. And you were back there at what time?
8:30, 9 o'clock. 8:30, 9 o'clock that night. And I was probably in and out. I was all over the area that day. There was multiple people everywhere, people searching. We were draining ponds and everything else around there. I know, well, I think that at 4:30, I believe at 4:30, I went back to the house with Captain Eggerman, and I think he looked under the house, the crawl space. 'Cause we wasn't direct at that time if the crawl space had been searched or not.
Were you there at noon?
I don't believe I was there at noon.
When'd you look at the trunk?
12:30. So 12:30.
Was that, so 12:30, not noon?
Right, 12:30.
Okay.
Because I was at the command post when I called him. After I was notified that he wanted his trunk searched, I called him and said, "You want to meet me at your car?"
Okay.
And so I went walk into his car.
All right. And you said ponds were drained.
Well, I know of the one that was.
One
Yes.
pond was drained, and there were people all over the place there at their house, right?
Yes, there was people there.
And they knew the ponds were being drained, didn't they?
Yes.
And people were talking about that. There was a fear that they would find Joe Clyde in that pond that was being drained, wasn't there?
Yes.
And that fear was shared by everybody out there, wasn't it?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself.
But everybody knew, or let's say this, it was no secret out there on that scene that that pond was being drained. The family could easily have known that, couldn't they?
Yes.
And they could easily have known that Joe Clyde Daniels might be deceased in that pond.
I mean, I guess so.
And they could have been talking about that, couldn't they?
Who could have been talking about it?
His family.
With each other?
Yes.
I guess so.
I mean, that's something that normally people would have been talking about, because that's a pretty terrible thing, isn't it?
I would believe so.
Yeah. So you were back out there at 4:30 and you looked through the basement.
Well, I didn't.
Okay.
Captain Eggerman did. I was just there with him.
All right. And the house, when you went through the house, you searched through the house, didn't you? Just not a deep search into the house, but you went through to make sure Joe Clyde wasn't in there, didn't you?
I walked through it, yes, sir.
Okay. And you walked in the back door,
Yes, sir.
and you walked up those steps,
Yes, sir. Well, up the steps, then through the back door.
up the steps, across that little porch, in through the back door, and through the house, right?
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you walked up those steps, well, let me ask this. When you were going through that house and walking up the steps and doing all that, you were looking for evidence that might lead you to find Joe Clyde Daniels, right?
Well, I mean, yes.
And when you walked up those steps, I'm sorry, I'll start again. Well, when you walked up those steps, you didn't see any muddy footprints on those steps, did you?
Nothing stood out to me.
You didn't see any muddy footprints on the porch, did you?
Not to my knowledge.
You didn't see any muddy footprints in the house, did you?
Nothing that stood out to me, no, sir.
And you looked at the beds and the bedclothes, didn't you?
I mean, I looked at the bed.
And there was no mud in the beds.
No, sir.
There was no grass in the beds, was there?
I didn't see any grass.
There was nothing to indicate that anybody had been walking around in a rain-soaked driveway and yard and then came back in that house and got in bed, was there?
No, sir.
There was nothing like that in any of the beds in any of the house, was there?
Not that I recall.
There were no muddy shoes in the house, were there?
Not that I recall.
Right, and when you took Mr. Daniels out to find Joe Clyde, he took you out there, but you didn't find anything, right?
Correct.
And he took you to several different places, didn't he?
Well, he took us to that one big field on McElhoney Road.
Right.
And it's a large field. I can't remember how many acres it is.
Okay.
It's a large field. But he
All
took
right.
us to many places in that area.
Right. He couldn't remember where it was, could he?
I mean, I don't know. We just didn't find him.
Okay. On August the 21st, 2018, you received a tip on the Dixon County Sheriff's Office Facebook page regarding someone who had confessed to the killing of Joe Clyde, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you investigated that, didn't you?
I forwarded it to Agent Joe Craig, TV
Okay.
Agent Joe Craig.
And it was determined that that confession was not credible, right?
Correct.
And that's because the individual who made the confession had mental illness, right?
I think so.
No one that you're aware of in the Dixon County Sheriff's Office or the TBI interviewed a Mr. Ledford prior to May the 14th of 2020, correct?
Correct.
And you and Detective McCartney on May the 14th, 2020 went out to Mr. Ledford's house, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you interviewed him.
Yes, sir.
And you told him during that interview that someone pulled in his driveway on April the 3rd, 2018 at around 10:30 or 10 o'clock at night, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told him that someone left his driveway the next morning at around 5:40 a.m., didn't you?
I told him there was some lights that appeared to move from his house at that time.
And you told him the impression you had was that either he left or someone pulled in his driveway and sat there all night without him knowing it, right?
I think I did at that time.
And then on July the 8th of 2020, you and Agent Burkhart with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation interviewed Mr. Ledford at, I'm not sure, was it the Dixon County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. He came to our office.
And he explained to you that, well, he lived next door to their house. About 70 feet was the property line, his property line from their house. Would you say?
I probably is close. I mean, it was fairly close.
Easily within walking distance,
Oh, yes.
even for a five-year-old child.
Yes.
You told him then a car pulled in around 10, didn't you?
One of us may have.
You said the lights went off on the car after that?
Probably.
And then an interior light came on.
Looked like it.
And then nothing. And then the car left at 5:40 in the morning. That's what you told him, right?
I didn't tell him the car left. The lights left.
You said
Because you can't see the car.
you believed someone left at that time, right?
At that time, that's what I believed.
Okay. During that period of time, from 10 o'clock at night till 5:40 in the morning, that's when Joe Clyde Daniels went missing, wasn't it?
I mean, we were notified at 6:22 a.m. on the 4th.
You were present for the second search warrant that was conducted where they dug the yard up.
Yes, sir.
And nothing was found, was it?
No, sir.
May I have a moment?
You may.
I'll pass you witness.
Detective, after further investigation and thorough review of the Pruitt Springs video, did a car leave Mr. Ledford's driveway?
No, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Taylor asked several questions about the morning of April 4th and a pond being drained, and that a lot of people were concerned about the pond being drained, and that the family may be talking about their fear or concern that Joe Clyde would be in the pond. Did the defendant go watch the pond being drained?
Not to my knowledge. At least I don't remember.
He wasn't home, was he?
See, the time frame on that, I don't recall. I know he wasn't there when I got there.
So then let me go back to something else. He leaves on and off throughout the morning,
Okay.
to the best of your knowledge.
Yes.
He returns home at 9:19 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how long he had been gone previous to 9:19 a.m.?
From the body cam footage, I believe he left at 6:50 something that morning.
And is out and about for the next approximately 2 hours.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you have a son?
Yes, sir.
If you thought your son was locked in your own trunk and you're driving around for 2 hours, would you stop at some point and check your trunk?
Yes, sir.
Or would you wait until noon to ask law enforcement to check it?
I would have checked it immediately as soon as I thought of it.
Thank you.
Recross? Thank you, Detective. You may step down. You were released from your subpoena, I believe. Is that correct? Crouch?
Yes.
Released for election. You may call your next witness.
Lavone.
I'm sorry, who was that? I'm sorry.
Lavone Robbins.
Robert?
Robbins.
Robbins, if you'll come right up here, please. You'll come around, raise your right hand, and face our clerk to be placed under oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am. Morning.
Good morning.
Robbins,
Would you
you'll
state
pull
your-
that chair up there closer and try to speak loudly enough into that microphone that we can all hear you, okay?
Okay.
Would you state your name, please, ma'am?
Lavone, Chapman-Robins.
And how do you spell your first name?
L-A-V is in Victor, O-N-E.
All right, thank you. And back in 2018, where were you employed?
Loves travel stop on Highway 48 South, Dixon.
All right. And what shift did you work?
Midnights.
About what time would you arrive and leave?
I generally would get there 10:30, quarter to 11. And a lot of times we weren't relieved on time, so it varied.
Okay, what time were you supposed to get off?
I believe 7.
Okay, so 10:30, 11 to 7.
Yes.
All right. Did you have a regular break time, do you recall?
I wouldn't say regular, no.
Okay.
But we did get a break.
Okay. And do you remember the night of April the 4th and the morning of April the 5th of 2018?
I do.
And were you working during that period?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to show you a clip that's been previously marked in exhibit. And you see the timestamp in the bottom. It's about 2:45.
I don't see it, but I'm not tall enough. I see it.
Ms. Chapman-Robins, the individual that was in that video, Mr. Joseph Daniels, had you seen him before?
One time prior, I believe.
Okay. About how long prior was that, if you recall?
I believe it was the week of Easter. Yes.
And did anyone come in? Did he come in the store? Is that where you saw him?
Yes, sir.
And was anyone with him?
Yes, sir.
All right, and who was with him?
Little Joe.
All right. And what kind of stands out in your mind about that?
It was just after Easter, of course, or right there at Easter time, and I remember the little boy having pajamas on, and it was like a cartoon character, like Spider-Man or something that stood out that wouldn't be typical.
All right. And so we saw this clip. It was about 2:45 when Mr. Daniels came in. Were you in the store at that time?
I don't believe so. I was either ill or I had to let my dog out, and I had asked the gentleman that was at the counter, which was my supervisor, could I run home quickly, as I did that.
So you were on break at that point?
Yes, at that point.
All right. I'm going to hand you a map here. So, Ms. Chapman-Robins, we have up here 1112 Garner Street, and down here is Love's Truck Stop. Is that where you were employed at Love's Truck Stop?
Yes, sir.
And is this the same map that you're holding in your hand there?
Yes, sir.
And what road is this right here that connects Garner Street to 48?
Harris Road?
And do you live on that road?
Yes, sir.
And is that where you went while you were on break?
Yes, sir.
You said to let your dog out or something of that nature?
Something to that nature, briefly.
So did you go back to work after you had concluded your business at home?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you notice anything strange on your trip home?
I
or your
did.
trip back to work, excuse me.
I did.
What'd you notice?
When, upon leaving my home, and again, this is in the middle of the night, so I'm very aware of the surroundings, and it was just an unusual occurrence coming down the road at that time. There was a vehicle that was almost like coasting. That's how slow. And I pulled out of my driveway behind them, and they were still moving very, very slowly, which I felt was very odd for that time of night. I thought maybe they're intoxicated, who knows, you know. But it was just odd.
And where did that vehicle go?
I actually followed it back to work because they pulled into Love's. So at the stop sign, they turned right on Highway 48 South, going south, and left into the Love's parking lot.
How long did they continue at that slow speed of nearly coasting, as you said?
It seemed to pick up regular speed after the stop sign, yes, sir, after turning.
After turning out onto Highway 48?
Yes, sir.
And Highway 48 is a big, kind of busy road. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Harris Road's a little bit smaller, not as much traffic,
Absolutely.
on it. All right. Your Honor, at this point, I'd ask to make that first clip, the next exhibit, and the map that follow, the exhibit after that.
This is the video clip?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. See 174?
Yes, sir.
Then I'd ask to make the map exhibit 175, Your Honor.
75 is the photo of the map.
All right, Ms. Chapman-Robins, when you said the vehicle pulled into Love's.
Correct.
What did it do?
From what I remember, only because it heightened my alert, you know, just instinctively something wasn't right about the situation. So I made sure that I paid attention to what was in the vehicle, who was in the vehicle, what they were wearing. And they were at pump number 13. It was a maroon Chevy. I want to say Impala or Malibu, something like that.
And who was in the vehicle?
A gentleman got out of the driver's side, and from what I remember, and this is what was odd as well, the hood was up, so like a pullover hoodie.
And was it Mr. Daniels that was in the vehicle?
I didn't know at that moment until he came to the counter, correct?
Okay, so after he got out at pump 13, you believe it was, he came in the store?
Yes, sir.
All right, and let's play that next clip. And Ms. Robbins, the timestamp on this is about 3:03 in the morning on April the 5th. Is that accurate?
Yes, it would be.
Is that you that we just saw in the bottom left corner there?
Yes, sir, it is.
So, Ms. Chapman-Robins, he stayed there. The ending clip was about 3:09 and a half, so he stayed there about 6 minutes talking. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
Yes, rather long. Most customers in and out, unless they're regulars, and I wouldn't consider him to be a regular.
Okay. And he was showing you something on his phone. What was he showing you?
A picture of baby Joe.
All right. And what was the conversation about?
Well, you can tell by the video that we were kind of more inquisitive to asking the questions about who this is and what was going on. And
asking about like Joe Clyde and what was going on with Joe Clyde?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we saw a clip where he was in the store 15 minutes prior to that and he didn't show anyone his phone. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then you saw him on Harris Road, followed him back to the gas station.
Correct.
And he got out of the car with his hood up and then came in the store and showed the phone.
Yes.
And what was your impressions of his demeanor as he came into the store at that time?
Well, as I stated, my senses were very high alerted. You know, the intuition, something in my gut was saying something's not right.
Okay.
And for him to spend that much time in there after he had presented the phone and the picture and that, it more felt like me that he was trying to make somewhat of a timeline.
Your Honor, I'm going to object speculation.
It's my opinion.
Ma'am, if there's an objection, you just need to be quiet while I
Yes, sir.
deal with that, all right? The objection is to speculation by the witness.
Your Honor, she's just giving a sense of what her impressions were.
All right, Ms. Robbins, you can testify about what your impressions were, but as far as speculating about what you think was going on, you can testify about what an impression is, about what you saw, and how it impressed you, but you cannot speculate about what someone was or was not doing, or what their intentions were, if you understand correctly.
Yes, I have no idea what the intention were, but that's how it appeared.
Sustain the objection. Ladies and gentlemen, this witness will be allowed to testify about what she observed and what the impression it gave her, but as far as her speculating about what someone was doing or what their intentions were would be inappropriate.
So you've testified the interaction lasted longer than was typical
Absolutely.
of any customer at the store?
Yes.
And I believe you said the impression that it gave you was that he was creating a timeline.
Yes, instinctively, something was wrong. That's my senses. That's what opinion it gave me.
All right. Your Honor has to make that last clip the next exhibit.
The 176.
Yes, sir.
Just a moment, please. Pass the witness.
So that the record is clear, Mr. Turnbow, those video clips were on what day?
April the 4th, Your Honor.
All right.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
April 5th.
The morning of April the 5th.
All right. Mr. Taylor?
Just to clarify, Ms. Robbins, this video was on April the 5th, 2018, correct?
I believe so, yes.
You encountered him first driving down, did you say Harris Road?
Yes, sir.
And you were behind him?
Yes, sir. He would be going east
And he was going slowly?
very slowly.
And you would expect someone that was looking for a child that had disappeared to be driving slowly down the road if they were looking for a child, wouldn't you?
I would have no opinion. I don't know what they were doing.
Well, if you were driving down the road looking for a lost child, would you drive 60 miles an hour down through there looking for him, or would you drive 25?
I would be probably walking.
You wouldn't be driving.
Correct.
Okay. When you walk, you go slower than you do when you drive a car, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you would be going slowly.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when Mr. Daniels came into the store, you and the other individual, who was that other individual in the...
That at the time was the midnight supervisor.
Okay. And what was his name?
Lee Jarvis.
Okay.
Jarvis, I'm not sure of the pronunciation.
And you talked to him you and Mr. Jarvis talked to him for about 6 minutes?
Him meaning the defendant?
The defendant, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And you discussed with him the fact that the TBI had been by the store and interviewed you, didn't you?
I don't recall stating that myself personally.
Do you recall the TBI coming by and interviewing you at the store?
I don't.
So they never came by and interviewed you or Mr. Jarvis?
I don't recall, sir. I don't remember in my recollection.
Okay. So did you, or you told Mr. Daniels that someone had come by there and indicated that a person who'd seen the child had been in the store and bought Dr. Pepper, right?
Repeat that.
Someone told you that an individual who'd seen Joseph Daniels had been in your store and bought Dr. Pepper.
Jack, we've got about 3 layers of hearsay going on.
Sustained, the question would be inappropriate.
I'll move on. You saw the video here today, didn't you?
Yes, sir. This is the first time, yes.
Okay. And you could clearly see his hands in that video, couldn't you?
Yes, sir.
And there was no bruising on his hands, were there?
I couldn't determine that. I mean,
You couldn't determine
it wouldn't
that?
be my opinion either way. I wasn't looking at his
Oh,
hands.
you weren't looking at his
I
hands?
was looking at his face.
Okay. So you never looked at his hands at all?
I looked at the phone when he handed the phone.
Okay. And so you have no idea, one way or the other, whether or not he had any bruising or anything on his hands?
No, sir.
Do you remember giving a statement to a Detective McCartney on 5/1/18?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach? I'll hand that to you. Is that the statement?
May I have a moment? Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you read this statement beginning at this word "he" right here and read to the end, to that period?
Yes.
Would you read it aloud?
Oh, he showed a picture of his son on his phone. I remember that. I did not notice any marks on his hands. I wasn't looking at for.
So, you didn't notice any marks on his hands?
No, sir.
And you watched the video and it doesn't seem to indicate that there were any marks on his hands, right?
I would assume.
Okay. And there were no abrasions on his hands?
I don't recall.
No cuts?
Not that I know of. I don't know. I wasn't paying that closely attention to the gentleman's hands.
But he held the cell phone up with his right or left hand.
I'm not sure which.
Okay. But he held it up there and you looked at it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he was driving down the road slowly, right?
Yes.
And looking for his son.
Mm-hmm.
Objection to what he was doing. She's testified she can't testify.
I think that would be speculation on her part as to what he was doing.
And he was driving down the road slowly.
Correct.
He came into Love's truck stop, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he came in, he talked to you about his son, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
And he explained while he was in there that he was looking for his son, didn't he?
I believe so, yes.
And he held up a phone showing that that was his son and asked if you'd seen him.
That would be correct.
He didn't buy Dr. Pepper that night, did he?
I don't remember.
May I have a moment?
Right.
That's all.
Redirect.
Just briefly, Judge. Ms. Chapman-Robins, don't tell me what was said, but did the defendant's father call the store a few minutes after he left?
Just after he left, it would have been a timely matter of maybe 8 to 10 minutes from him leaving the store.
And who did he speak with?
Myself,
You spoke with the defendant's father?
yes, and then he called back.
And then he called back again.
And I believe I referred it to Lee, the supervisor.
So the defendant's father called twice after he left.
Correct.
That's all, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Again, Ms. Robbins, this is your statement, correct? You've looked at it. It is the statement you made on 5/1/18, correct?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd ask that be made an exhibit and published to the jury.
All right. You'll hand it to the clerk.
177.
Thank you.
Anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. You may step down. You're released from your subpoena, and you may stay or go as you choose.
Yes, sir.
State me, call your next witness.
John Gunn, Your Honor. Your Honor, we have a sidebar.
What? Mr. Turnbow, this next witness, is it going to be brief?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we're going to take a recess after this next witness, which is, I'm told, a brief witness. Let's call your next witness.
John Gunn, Your Honor.
Step right up, please. You'll come around, raise your right hand, and be placed under oath.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Could you state your name for the jury, please, sir?
Deputy John Gunn,
And how do you spell your last name?
Gunn.
All right. Deputy Gunn, where are you employed now?
The Dixon County Sheriff's Office.
Back in April of 2018, did you still work for the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, sir.
All right, and were you working in the jail at that point?
Yes, sir, I was.
All right. How is it that an inmate would make a request to speak with someone, such as yourself, working there?
If you were in the booking area, they would just call you over, either wave at you or just call for you.
All right. And did Mr. Daniels ask to speak with you the morning, or on the morning of April well, let me ask you this. Did he ask to speak with you?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you recall what morning that was?
That was the 6th, I believe.
Okay. Now, when he requested to speak with you, what did he ask?
Well, he waved me over.
All right. And did you go over and speak with him?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And what did he ask to speak with TBI agents?
Yes, sir, he did.
So he requested of you to get in contact with TBI to come to the jail.
Yes, sir, he did.
All right. And did you do that?
Yes, sir.
And did TBI come to speak with Mr. Daniels?
Yes, sir, they did.
So, Deputy Gunn, could it have been the morning of April the 7th? And if you don't recall, that's okay.
I can't recall, sir.
All right, all right. And after that interaction, did you allow Mr. Daniels to make a phone call to TBI?
Yes, sir, he did.
All right. That's all, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Gunn. You may step down. You're released from your subpoena.
Thank you, sir.
Told you it would be quick, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and take our morning recess at this point. So we'll be in recess for 15 minutes.
All rise. This court is in recess for 15 minutes.
You want to get shot today, don't you? You want to get shot today?